Galin here with the Chatham Journal, Chatham Chat List. I am sitting down this Saturday morning with Marcus Globuschutz, and we're going to talk because Marcus is running for Chatham County Sheriff. He's running against Sheriff Robertson, and let's start off with the question I know everybody asks you: why are you running for Chatham County Sheriff?
Well, Gene, I decided I wanted to run for sheriff because I just got tired of being a victim like a lot of people here in Chatham County. I decided that either I could complain about what's going on or I could do something about it. So I decided I was going to do something about it. I have substantial law enforcement experience. I started in 1994 with law enforcement and in a little town called Gibsonville on the Alamance-Guilford County line. Then I went to Grand PD and Alamance County Sheriff's Office. Then from there, I'm currently a probation parole officer with the Department of Public Safety, and I'm assigned to Randolph County. I thought it was important to get somebody in office that wasn't a politician. And I'm not a politician, I'm just a parent, a concerned parent, and I just feel like something needs to be done. Our county is a gem of the state, and I just hate to see it being wasted away.
I think one of the things, there's several concerns you have, violence and drugs in school, how money is being spent, how the animal rescue center is being run. But I think one of the things that seems to be a concern, that when I saw you speak at the Carolina Meadows Forum, drugs seems to be a big issue here in the county. It was interesting because I was sitting next to one of the Carolina Meadows residents, and she's, of course, Carolina Meadows, different demographic. She said, is drugs really a problem in Chatham County? So if that lady was sitting next to you and she asked you that question, Marcus, are drugs really a problem in Chatham County, what would you tell her?
Absolutely. You know, currently the numbers are on pace to be up, the overdoses to be up 2,400% from 2016. Now, I acknowledge that in 2016 we had heroin and people abusing pills, but now since fentanyl has started to come across the border, we're seeing more overdoses, we're seeing more people dying, we're seeing younger ages of people dying. 14 to 43, the number one cause of death in the United States is overdoses. Here in Chatham County, we have overdoses every day. The EMS and the fire and the law enforcement, they're responding because they're overdoses. You know, it wasn't too long ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, law enforcement wouldn't ever carry Narcan. But now everybody has to carry it, and they have to carry multiple vials with them because they're coming into it quite often. As a probation parole officer, I've had to use Narcan on people. We've had overdoses in the office. We've had overdoses in the courthouse. Then, of course, when we're out in the field, we overhear the sheriff's office responding to an overdose when we're right around the corner. Then we respond and we give them Narcan to save these people's lives.
All right, now I'm going to backtrack here on a couple things, because again, we're talking to general population here. Maybe that lady from Carolina Meadows is watching this video right now. When you say Narcan, what exactly do you mean?
Well, Narcan is a substance that's medical grade that we give individuals to reverse the overdose process. Heroin, fentanyl, what it does, it suppresses the respiratory system. So basically people just quit breathing, and from there they die. So you give them Narcan, and Narcan reverses the effects of the opioid, the heroin or the fentanyl. And you know, by giving them that, we give them an opportunity to live.
How long does it take for the Narcan? I assume it's different for different people, but how long generally does it take Narcan to take effect, and how quickly do you have to get it to that person?
Well, you have to get it to them very quickly. Normally, Narcan works between 20 and 30 seconds. On some cases, you have to give them multiple doses. So it's very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And also, law enforcement carries Narcan even for themselves because fentanyl is so small. You're talking about taking a pencil and you put a grain at the end of the lead on a pencil, that's enough to kill somebody. So, I mean, we're talking about something that could be airborne. You open up a package and a little bit flies up in your face, and next thing you know, you have an officer overdosing. So we've had to use universal precautions. We have to wear gloves. If we know that it's possibly fentanyl, we don't want to open the package. So it can be very dangerous.
You mentioned heroin and fentanyl. For folks who aren't familiar with fentanyl, because that's been, I guess, the drug of choice, and it's become more available and it's being more easily imported into this country. Why don't you tell folks what exactly fentanyl is, what are the dangers, why has it become so popular, and again, you're saying a very small amount of it's just all you need to do to be affected or even to get overdosed on.
That's correct. Fentanyl, recently in the last couple of years, we've had a massive surge of people crossing our southern borders. Well, the criminal element, the cartels have taken advantage of that, and they're paying people and bribing people to bring these new drugs in. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It's mainly made in China, so they're ordering it from China, being shipped to Mexico, and 94% of all fentanyl is coming through our southern border. So it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, this morning on the Chatham Challenge hadn't come out yet. Someone had submitted a email that they noticed that when they walk along the riverbanks or they're walking around just on a walk, that they notice a lot of drug paraphernalia thrown aside. Where are you seeing the particular hot spots for drug abuse here in the county?
Well, I dare say if not a community in Chatham County is not affected by drug abuse. You can go from the most expensive neighborhoods to the most poverty-ridden neighborhoods that we have in Chatham County, and you're going to find drug abuse. Unfortunately, the lower income areas are going to have more drug abuse, or it's more visible. But also you look at the children, the kids that's in the schools, they're abusing it as well. But Narcan, it can be ingested by eating it, snorting it, shooting it up IV. It can be placed into other drugs. We've had people overdose while smoking methamphetamines.
You mentioned Narcan, you mean fentanyl, is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes, fentanyl. All of this it can be placed in a lot of things. And we're seeing, in my experience, that even some of the drug dealers are putting fentanyl in with marijuana and some other controlled substances. And it's a business plan. They're just trying to get people addicted. Then they'll keep coming back to them. And, it's very heartbreaking that it's come down to that in our community.
So is fentanyl more habit forming than heroin, or once you get, it sounds like once you get hooked on it, you're just
it's heroin is very, very addicting, but I'd say fentanyl is 10 times more addicting than heroin. So you talk about a cow is very big, then you compare that to an elephant. The elephant is humongous. Right. So then you compare that to a whale, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and more powerful and more potent.
You mentioned, again, we have these drug issues here in the county, but I think you've also mentioned that Chatham is becoming a prime source for illicit drugs.
Absolutely. If you look and talk to anybody in surrounding areas, the surrounding law enforcement agencies, whenever they order up a controlled substance to do a drug deal, or they have a target that they're following that's conducting drug activity, a lot of times they follow them back to Chatham County. They have set up a network here in Chatham County. We don't have anybody working drugs in this county. We have a wonderful investigator that's assigned to the DEA task force. We have his supervisor, and that's it. That's absolutely it.
So that's two people.
That's two people. And you got to have at least two people to do an investigation, because you can't go in and expect to buy drugs from somebody with an informant and it's only one officer. It's always two. You should have at least four. It's a safety issue. So my understanding is that Sheriff Robeson is planning on doing away with the drug unit after the election. He's already got planned that he's going to win, and he's already going to reassign those two deputies elsewhere. They're going to take a deputy assigned to a DEA task force. They're going to do away with that slot and either put them in criminal investigations or put them somewhere else in the department. That's a travesty. I don't understand why you'd give up on trying to fight the drugs. I understand and I acknowledge we'll never stop drugs in this county or any county, any state. As long as people are walking this earth, there's going to be somebody selling drugs. But we can try to slow it down. We can try to hinder it some way to try to protect our family and protect our kids in the schools. We've had numerous overdoses in the schools last year, and just as recently as Wednesday of this week, there was an overdose at Chatham Central High School. That child had to be transported to the hospital because of the overdose. At some point in time, we gotta stop. We gotta say, look, this isn't working. Part of the problem is the schools aren't educating our kids about it. They've had enough overdoses in the schools last year, and starting this year, they can compile that information, educate our kids, let them know the dangers of it. Then from there, we can try to slow it down and stop it. What's it going to take? We're going to have a child die in the school before they take this serious. They had life-saving measures last year. They had to give kids Narcan, had to do CPR on them. They were transported to the hospital by EMS. And that's scary to me. I have 2 boys at Jordan Matthews High School, and I have one at Siler City Elementary School. And I am scared to death. And that's another reason why I'm running for sheriff. If the current administration's not willing to step up and do something, I have to do it myself.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, because you mentioned as one of your priorities is to collaborate with other law enforcement agencies within Chatham to address the problem head on. It seems that Sheriff Robertson created in 2017 a prevention partnership on controlled substances that had been working to address that opioid. I'm reading off of the article, opioid epidemic in the county for 5 years, and initiated partnership between the different public health department and the sheriff's office. Are you saying that's not working, or it's how is your plan different than what Sheriff Robertson says he's doing?
Well, what I'm saying, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually go out there and try to fight the drugs. What Sheriff Robertson did is fantastic. It's outstanding. He started this partnership, and that's where it ended. There hadn't been any other enforcement action, no other educational action, trying to get out to the public or the kids. In 2017, we did have an opioid problem. We've had an opioid problem for years, but it was more of a pill issue. Plus, heroin was coming into it. When the doctors quit issuing these prescriptions for the pills, then that's when heroin got big. Now, fentanyl's cheaper. It's a more potent drug. The pills are too expensive to buy for people on the street. Then, they went to heroin. From there, they're going to go to a more cost-effective, more longer high, which is the fentanyl.
Now, fentanyl, it sounds like you don't need a whole lot of volume, because I guess dozens of years ago I think it might have been 3 sheriffs ago, they busted up and got a whole truckload of marijuana, which got buried and then dug up. But that's a whole nother story. So you don't really need a whole truckload of fentanyl to affect a whole bunch of people, do you?
No, not at all. And it's a shame. Randolph County Sheriff's Office was doing an investigation, and part of that investigation brought them to Chatham County, and they executed a search warrant in Chatham County and recovered enough fentanyl to kill 390,000 people. That's every man, woman, and child in Chatham County. Kill them 5 times over and still be drugs laying on the table. And that was here in Chatham County.
Now, so they were able to get get that fentanyl and take it out of circulation?
Yes.
All right, let me ask you, going back, you mentioned there's two folks on the drug team. You mentioned them going out and buying drugs. Question is, are those 2 folks Chatham County folks, and wouldn't drug dealers know who those 2 officers were?
Well, yes. Of course, you're going to have people doing that, but, you have undercover agents. You can get other agencies to come in and buy drugs for you and do investigations. A lot of times you can just go knock on the door and talk to people. And by talk, it's called knock and talk. Just talk to them and say, hey, I'm Marcus Globuschutz. I'm with the sheriff's office. I'm here to talk to you about controlled substances. I got information that you're selling X, Y, and Z. Can I come in and talk to you? And by talking to people, one thing leads to another. Then from there, you're able to recover controlled substances and start a criminal prosecution. But you also have to have undercover informants, confidential informants, people who are trying to get drugs off the street, or just strictly people just trying to get out of charges. Wherever their motivation is, I don't care. I just want to get dope off the street.
So it sounds like if you got somebody that you need to bring in for undercover, you're going to work with some agencies outside of the county. Then.
Well, absolutely, and part of that is part of my plan on the drug task force. I want to have local, state, and federal partners when it comes to doing this drug task force. Part of it, the sheriff's office currently has an investigator assigned to the DEA task force as a task force officer. He can bring in resources that is able to buy drugs and do investigations here, but most of the investigations are done out of Chatham County. He's assigned in another area. He travels to that area every day to work, and they pretty much work in the middle district of North Carolina, which is great. And I do not want to lose that position. I want to keep that position there because it's very effective. But starting off, we need to focus on Chatham County. Like I said, I don't have a magic wand. I cannot just get elected, get sworn in, and the very next day cure all the problems of Chatham County. I'm not saying that, but I can tell you, I'm going to give it 10,000% more effort than what they're getting right now.
Earlier on, you mentioned that you had the overdoses in school, and I think a lot of kids in this community, well, a lot of parents and a lot of citizens are concerned about the well-being of their children. You mentioned it looks like the ones that did overdose were hospitalized and did survive. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so we haven't had any kids in the school system die from overdoses that we know of.
That I know of. No.
All right. He mentioned educating the kids about the dangers of fentanyl and drug abuse. Are there other steps that you can take to be able to curtail what's going on in Chatham County schools when it comes to kids overdosing?
Absolutely. We have a great group of guys and girls assigned to a school resource officer position. My goal, I want to have a school resource officer in every school. I don't want to have to share a resource officer with 2 or 3 different schools. That's not fair to the officer. That's not fair to the schools. And it's not fair to the parents and the kids. I want to have a officer assigned to a school. That way, if there's a problem, a parent or a teacher can call that officer. I want them to be highly trained, certified officers that are in these schools that care. Not just care about the law enforcement aspect, but care about our children and our future. Because, by having a good relationship with the law enforcement as children, growing up through and saying, hey, this guy cares about me. He wears a uniform, he wears a gun, he has this authority. He's a human being too. When I had a bad day, he recognized it. He gave me a hug. When I was on the honor roll, he gave me a high five. When we won the football game, he was at the gate and he shook our hands. That means a lot outside the law enforcement field. And, that's the relationship I want to build with the community, with the current sheriff's office. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I know several of the SROs in the county, and they seem to do a very good job.
Absolutely.
But you're saying that not every school has their own SRO. How many schools are sharing how many SROs right now?
Well, I know by law they're required to keep an SRO in every high school. Okay. So that's 4. So I know between Chatham Middle School and Siler City Elementary School and Virginia Cross, they share 1. There's one at Silcoat, I think they share that with another school. So, not every school has an SRO. And, God forbid, I do not want this to happen. We have an incident like it happened in Texas. People talk about tax dollars and people talk about they're paying this taxes and that taxes. But I can tell you, at any time there's ever been an incident that occurred, I guarantee you, every single person in that community said, I will pay $100 more every year just to have an officer there to stop what has happened. You know, I want to do preventive measures. I want to be able to have the SROs there. But, you know, to get back to, we were talking about educating the kids. There's a program that has just came out. It's called EKG2. Educate Kids on Guns and Gangs. It's more to it than just what the title is. It talks about, of course, guns and gangs, but it goes into peer pressure, sexting, drug abuse, you know, why kids go out there and use drugs and try to fit in and put themselves in a position for sexting or having premarital sex, you know, by taking this program and educating the kids at an early age. When I say early, you know, 5th or 6th grade, you get them there before really they start feeling the peer pressure. Peer pressure is going to be there from kindergarten on up. But when you start trying to fit in or fit in with a certain crowd, it really starts in middle school, around 6th grade. So, you know, if we can get there and educate these kids, it's okay to be you. It's okay to do the right thing. You know, you don't have to go out here and do these other things, grab a gun, steal a car, use drugs, just to be cool. You know, it's okay to be you.
Let me ask you this question. When you mention educating kids on gangs and guns, do you believe in the Second Amendment, and how does that correspond? How does EKG2 correspond with the Second Amendment?
Well, the EKG2 has nothing to do with restricting gun rights. I believe in the Second Amendment. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe the Constitution from the beginning to the end. So, and the Second Amendment is a very vital part of that paperwork that we founded our country on. But EKG2 isn't about restricting gun owners' rights or anything like that, because you have kids, they're not old enough to own or possess these firearms. But, you know, there's a lot of illegal guns on the streets. You know where your parents keep their gun. They should be locked up. But, you know, if they keep them in a gun safe, you know how kids are. You know, they'll sit there and just happen to watch it and you're not paying attention. Going to get a shotgun to go hunting, a rifle to go squirrel hunting, or just target practicing, or whatever. They're going to figure out what these combinations are and they'll have access to it. You know, of course, all the stolen guns that's on the streets, the ghost guns that people are making, they're going to have access to guns. And we just want to be able to educate the kids. Because in today's society, I'm going to sound like my grandparents, but with video games and TVs and movies and all that, I think the value of life has been diminished. And they think just like they play a video game, they can go in there and kill somebody and they just they pop back up on another part of the city. But, you know, that's not realistic, you know, and I don't think the value of life is really there now as it used to be.
So unlike a video game, real world, you do not get multiple lives.
That's correct.
Couple things too. I think one of the things you're looking to do is create a jail diversion program for offenders with mental health and substance abuse issues. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. In my experience as a probation parole officer, I found that a lot of people who use substance abuse, it's because of a trauma in their life. You know, we have a lot of good people that are addicted to opioids. That was in a car accident that fell out of a tree stand. It got hurt at work, and the doctors overprescribed them an opioid. From there, they got addicted. Then from there, you know, the doctors cut them off. You know, opioid has a dependency where it makes people very, very sick. From there, they resorted to go back to the streets to buy drugs. The pills are very expensive. They go down to heroin, now fentanyl. So I want to be able to address those issues. A lot of our property crimes in the community are from those who are addicted. But also, it's a co-occurring condition with a lot of people. They're self-medicating. They have a mental health issue and they try to help medicate that mental health issue with controlled substances. So it's the saying, what come first, the chicken or the egg? You know, do they have a mental health issue due to substance abuse, or do they have a substance abuse issue due to mental health? So in my diversion program, we have UNC Hospital. North of here, we have Sand Hills Behavioral Health. South of here, there's no reason why we can't get together and work together and get a program up and help these people. We cannot arrest our way out of this problem. We cannot arrest every addict that's in our community and keep them in jail, let them get clean and say, okay, you've been clean for 30 days. Here you go. Have a good day. Because that's not how it works. If that was the case, we wouldn't ever have any more issues once we arrest somebody. But as you can tell in the arrest blotter and everything else, you start seeing the same faces week after week, month after month, year after year. And it's one of those deals where we need to offer a long-term solution. Now, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And in my experience, until you get your mind right and get your heart right, until you really said enough is enough, you're not going to be able to help these people or help a portion of these people get clean. They're going to have to want to do it for themselves.
So where does the cleaning process begin, for lack of a better term? Are you talking about preventative cleaning? Are you talking about, hey, they get up in front of a judge or get caught and, hey, here are your options? Or I mean, you mentioned going into jail and then 30 days you're out and it's like, okay, you're ready to go. How's what your plan that you're thinking about doing? How's that kind of work?
Well, what I'd like to do, get with the district attorney, get with some of the judges, and come up with a program where they sign a contract with the health system, with the law enforcement side, and also through the court system, and say, hey, we're going to continue your case out for a period of time. And during this period of time, we want you to attend X amount of recovery classes. Try to give them the tools to put in their toolbox to be able to carry around to help them stay clean. And from there, if they're able to get clean, if they're able to attend these classes, and they're able to gather the tools within themselves to recognize what it takes to keep them clean, instead of spending all this money putting people in jail, going through the court system, putting them in jail, go through the court system, go on probation, go into prison, then they come back to jail, then they go in the court system. Why don't we spend a little money on the front end and try to give them a long-term solution? Then if they complete the contract, we'll dismiss the charges. Now, of course, we're talking about small, petty crimes, first-time offenders, people that don't have an extensive record. And, we're going to extend the treatment and everything out to everybody. We're not going to exclude anybody. But, the diversion program, a lot of people don't realize they have a mental health issue. They just know when they use this drug or that drug, they forget about having some type of trauma in their life. And the trauma could be a loved one dying, a very close, losing a child, having been sexually assaulted when they was a child. And these memories haunt them day in and day out. So when they use controlled substances, heroin, fentanyl, whatever, it makes them forget. At least for a short period of time, they're not thinking about it. So if we can get them into a process where they can express their feelings, they can talk to somebody that's trained to say, hey, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay that you feel like that, but it wasn't your fault. You was a 7-year-old child that was sexually abused by an adult that knew better. We got to do something with the guilt there. And that's just one of 10 million examples of why people use drugs. Some people just like to get high. I acknowledge that. But a majority of the people, they're trying to mask or help some type of trauma.
How well does your plan work with something like fentanyl, which seems to be so addictive and so hard to break as a habit? I mean, it sounds like some of the stuff you're talking about works well if you've got, first offenders with some minor mental health issues, or maybe they're over-medicating, or maybe they're doing some of the lesser drugs. But what do you do with the fentanyl addicts? I
have some folks that's been on my caseload throughout the years that, they've been able to kick the habit. But they had to get to a point where they were sick and tired of being sick and tired. They had to get to the point where they got their mind right and said, I'm not living like this anymore. I'm tired of going to jail. I'm tired of having to go to prison. I'm tired of stealing from my family. I'm tired of not having time with my kids and watching my kids grow up. When they started, they had very small children. Then when they finally decided, hey, I have enough of what's going on, their children don't recognize them. And they don't recognize their children. So we have a lot of success stories. I just don't think there's enough preventative, proactive law enforcement. But I also don't think there's enough programs out there that we can offer people. You know, eventually, I'd like to team up with some local churches, and my plan is to have a recovery house here in Chatham County. We don't have any. My dream is to have 2 recovery houses, one for men and one for women. At least a 10-bed facility that they can go in, they can detox, they can get the help that they need, and maybe try to find a long-term solution for them. You know, some people have to go to urban ministry. Some people have to go up to Blue Ridge in Asheville, that they have a recovery center there. It's a 2-year program. You know, you have Trocia in Durham. It's a 2-year program. They help them get a job. They teach them how to balance a checkbook. They teach them to be accountable for their actions. They get a GED. You know, and you know, a lot of these places are also Christian based. So, you know, not to push religion on anybody, but you know, once you start getting your head right and get your head clear and get your mind right and your heart right, a lot of people can do a lot of things, you know, just by putting their mind and their heart in the right place.
You mentioned the recovery house. You mentioned some of what goes into creating a recovery house, and specifically what does, you mentioned 10-bed if you had one for men and women. What's involved in a recovery house? How does it work for the person that's recovering? What kind of resources does a recovery house need to have?
Yeah. Well, when I say I would like to have a recovery house, I'd like to use my influence as sheriff to encourage some local businesses. Because we'll have to have business partners, religious partners, churches. We'll have to get Sand Hills down in Moore County to help us with the mental health aspect. You know, possibly with UNC Hospital to try to get some counselors in. But you know, what we'll do is try to find a location that can house these people. You know, we'll need resources from the community, jobs. We'll need clothing from people donating from Goodwill or the local PTA. You know, then we'll have to get some medical help. You know, then we'll have to go to the health department and get some of these people that haven't had medical help in several years. Then from there, we'll have to have a board. We'll set a board up to oversee it. I'm not going to oversee it. I'm not asking to oversee it. But we'll have a board in place that will oversee it. You know, I've asked some churches, hey, this is my idea. I'm not asking for an amount, but would you commit to 5 years to get this started? If your church can commit $250 a year, will you commit to 5 years of $250 so we can get it started? And I've been told time and time and time again they will. So I haven't thrown an amount out there because I don't know. I mean, it's one of those deals, but once we get the recovery house together, of course, they'll have to have a lot of structure. You know, there'll be curfews. We won't allow people in and out. They'll have to pass drug tests. They'll have to go through X amount of, the one in Asheboro, they do 90 recovery classes in 90 days. So they have to do some type of treatment every day.
Right.
And, you know, and that's what it's going to take for fentanyl. That's what it's going to take for methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine. Because, you know, these things, they take a hold of people. And, you know, they just drag them down to the deepest spots of the earth. And, you know, you don't recognize people. But they can recover. I've seen it. You've seen it. The public has seen it. But it's a dirty little secret nobody wants to talk about. You know, that's somebody else's problem. Let's push it to the side. But it's not somebody else's problem when they're breaking into your cars. When they're cutting your catalytic converters off. When they're out here robbing the stores. So, I mean, that's everybody's problem.
You've been are still a probation and parole officer. What is the difference between a probation and parole officer?
Well, probation is a post-conviction out of court. From there, you have certain guidelines that the courts order you to mandate, and basically what we're the middleman, the probation parole officer. So we'll monitor their compliance, make sure they're getting the treatment if they're ordered treatment. If it's like DWI, make sure that they go to DWI treatment because it's required by law. We'll drug test them, make sure that they're not continued to commit criminal activity. And all this is straight out of court for probation. Parole, which is called post-release now, that is part of the coming out of the prison system. Either they were sentenced to prison straight out of court, or they were given probation and they weren't successful in probation, then the court system sent them to prison because they were non-compliant for probation. And we basically wear a couple of hats. Basically, what we're an advocate for the individual. We're the cheerleading squad that get behind these people and say, hey, you can do this. I know you can do it. Let's go out here. Let's find a job. And we're not licensed therapists. We're not counselors. But we try to talk to them on a human level, one-on-one level. And, be able to say, hey, we need this, we need that. In order to be successful, we need for you to continue to go down this road. That could be treatment. That could be cognitive behavior intervention. That could be having to do quick dips in jail. Make sure they do their DWI classes. Make sure they stay away from the victims. Monitor, make sure that certain people are following 50B or 50C orders, domestic violence orders. So we wear a lot of hats. But ultimately, we also wear the enforcement hat. If they're not in compliance, ultimately we have to arrest individuals and take them back to court, testify in court, and let the courts know this individual's been non-compliant.
What's your best or most successful case that you're most proud of?
Man, I got so many. There's an individual that that's had 30, 35 cases of probation through the years. And, that's a lot. I mean, that's a whole lot. And, every time something was happening, his name was involved. Every time something was going on, his name was involved. Finally, he came, and I had him. And I told him, I said, look, it's going to be compliant consequences. Either you're going to do what needs to be done, or we're just going to schedule a time in court. And he explained to the judge. He said, I've had enough. And this is one of the examples. I've had enough. I don't recognize my kids, and it's just one of those deals where my kids don't recognize me. I hadn't seen my child in X amount of time. And, I'm 45 years old. I've been in prison for 27 years, in and out for the last 27 years. So basically, he spent most of his adult life, or all of his adult life, in prison. And he's doing very well. He owns a business. He works. He got his driver's license back. I see him at Walmart, and he's excited to tell me, hey, man, I've been 3 years clean. I got 15 employees. I just met the woman of my dreams. We're getting married. The proverbial house with the picket fence and the dog and the kids. And, I'd rather hear those stories versus, you see who overdosed the other day. You see who got arrested the other day on the jail list. We just had another individual on probation die because he overdosed. It's heartbreaking, but he was a success story.
You don't have to answer this question, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. Has there been a case that you've had that just has torn your heart apart?
Yes. There's been some cases where, unfortunately, a parent had sold their child for drugs. And it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Thank you for answering that question. One of the other things that you mentioned as an important issue is addressing the vacancies that the sheriff's office is having. What do you see as being the issue, and what do you see as your solution to that?
Well, when I started my campaign, it was October 1st of last year, 2021. I did some record requests and asked how many vacancies they had. Of course, I had already talked to Human Resources, and they told me they had 37 openings. The sheriff's office said they had 32. So, October of last year they had 32. Now they have like 54. You know, it's you see, and it's a good thing. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say everything that the sheriff does is bad. I'm not going to demonize Mike like that, because that's not what it's about. He does some good things. You know, the public relations and getting out into the community and having the pictures and the image he puts on Facebook, it's great. But you know, in law enforcement, you gotta have that balance. You know, you gotta have some enforcement action. You gotta be able to get out there and make it where the folks, you know, law enforcement is there just for that, law enforcement. Now, the public relations, that's a very important part, you know, and I want to push community policing, which is getting the law enforcement involved with the community, but you're also getting the community involved in the problem solving process. If they're not involved in it, it's just one-sided. And right now that's what it is. It's one-sided. Out there, talking to the kids, Facebook famous is there. The enforcement side isn't there. Part of the problem that by talking to deputies that are currently there and deputies I have left, you have issues with morale. You have issues with they put tracker boxes on the cars and they tell if their seatbelts were on or seatbelts were off. But Gene, if you're riding through a neighborhood looking for an armed robbery suspect and you don't have your seatbelt on because you're traveling 8 miles an hour, if you see the suspect, you want to jump out and try to locate that suspect or apprehend him before he robs somebody else or hurts somebody. That's not what the sheriff is focused on. The sheriff is focused on, I got an alert from your car, you rode around this neighborhood, didn't have your seatbelt on. Here's your write-up. You were going 6 miles an hour over the speed limit or 10 miles an hour over the speed limit because you was trying to catch up with a car that was reported as a possible drunk driver. Here's your write-up. In the meanwhile, as the sheriff is riding up and down 64, running 80, 90 miles an hour passing marked patrol cars, you know, he don't have one of the trackers on his car that tells how fast he's going. You know, it's the morale issue. You know, it's the part of where the county garage works 4 10-hour days, Monday through Thursday, but Monday is a holiday and a deputy has to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They run 100 miles past due on the oil change and they get written up. And on the lift right beside theirs is the sheriff's truck. That's 10,000 miles past due on the oil change. That's why morale's bad. You know, he talks about family. He wants to treat them like family. If that's how you treat people like family, I'd rather be an acquaintance. You know, what I want to do, what every law enforcement agent out there will tell you, they want a administration that's going to support them. It's going to be there and support them, and right, wrong, or indifferent, they're going to be there and support them and not throw them under the bus. If they've done something wrong, we're going to address it and we're going to move forward. If we are human beings, we make mistakes. Because you get caught not wearing your seatbelt, or because you was running a little bit over the speed limit, or you was doing this or doing that to do your job, I'm not saying it's okay to run 80, 90 miles an hour just because. But, you know, if you're trying to pace a car, we don't have radars in this county. So in order to pace a car, you keep your car behind the target car at a certain distance. You don't gain or lose that space. It tells you how fast that car is going. It's enforcement. And just because somebody gets written up for that shouldn't dictate their career. Otherwise, you know, it shouldn't dictate their career if they have a sign in their yard. You know, as the sheriff, you should encourage people to vote. You shouldn't threaten them with their jobs. You know, deputies tell me every day, hey, I was told the sheriff knows who votes, when they vote, where they vote, and who they voted for. I said, no, that's not correct. He can tell who votes, when they vote, and where they vote. They cannot tell who they voted for. He threatens their career. It threatens their job. I've said it before. I've posted it before. When I get elected sheriff, not a single person is going to lose their job. I'm not going to fire nobody. Because the political firings is crazy. With 50 plus openings, I can't afford to fire anybody.
How big is the department overall?
They have 176 positions.
All right, so about 120 of those are full. Is that filled?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're looking about a third's missing.
Your involvement in the community. You are coaching at Jordan Matthews High School for football.
Yes.
You mentioned you have 2 kids at Jordan Matthews. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. How did you get involved with that? Why do you do it? And tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I got involved in coaching because, I played college ball, I played high school ball, and I really enjoy sports. When I worked at Grand Police Department, I was part of the community-oriented policing. That community-oriented policing is you take and gather an area, or you'd work a particular area, and you can do cookouts, you get a community watch going, and you build a trust with the community. That way the community will get a vested interest in what's going on in their community. Well, I decided to focus on a subset, a community within a community. So I started coaching at Graham High School. So I coached wrestling and football from 1996 to 2001, and really enjoyed it. Dealing with the kids, being to see how they grow through the years that they're in high school. From there, I left Grand Police Department. I got out of law enforcement for a little while in 2003, and I got married in 2002 to my lovely wife, Amanda, now. And I followed her to Chatham County, and Chatham County is home to me now. But, we started our family. We have 3 wonderful children, and I got back involved with sports with my oldest son, Jackson. Then, I coached baseball through the rec league here in Siler City. Then from there, I asked if I could help with the football team. And I started helping out with the football team, and this is my 3rd football season helping out with them. I love it. I absolutely adore it. We're having a tough time in our sports now. COVID was not a friend to any of us. That includes the mental health to the kids, the grades, the sports. And, I just see that the need to be able to have a good male figure in these kids' lives. And see, that's part of the stuff that Coach Johnson is trying to share with these kids. It's more than just sports. It's more than just winning. We do book bag drives. We've helped out by trying to raise money for a 14U team for the rec league. We had chicken dinner back in the summer. It's about community service. And what we're trying to do, it takes a village to raise a family or raise a child. We're trying to teach these kids, hey, it's okay to be you. It's okay to be polite. It's okay to do for others. It's not all about you. It's not all about me. We got to look at the greater good. And the greater good is trying to get these young men to be productive individuals in our community. You can't slack off on your schoolwork. You have to be able to do your role on the football team. That translates to being a good employee. You can have employers say, hey, I need for you to do this, this, and this. You can't look at your employer and go, well, I'll do this, well, I'm not doing that. Then you can find yourself unemployed. Right. There's a lot of skills lessons that we're trying to teach, and a lot of life lessons that we're trying to teach. I'm just blessed to be part of it.
Yeah, I noticed on a Twitter feed just this past week that the football team's been working on getting tutored and improving their grades, and I think their grades have all gone up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So every day before football practice, we all meet in the library and we do tutoring sessions or homework sessions, because one, the ultimate goal in the school is to be educated. It's not to play sports. the number one goal is to get your education. If they don't have good grades, by the rules, they can't play. So we instill in these kids, you go to school, don't be tardy, don't do anything crazy while you're in school. Then, and study hard and be a good athlete. And you just be a good citizen in general. And, that's the part that Coach Johnson's really pushing. And the kids are buying in. Of course, I'm buying in. I've already bought in because I think that just leads to the greater good. 4 years in high school can lead to a lifetime of experience and success.
We're going to wrap it up on September. In the September school board meeting, you went up and you during the public public input portion, you went up there and spoke for 3 minutes. You also mentioned you're a Christian, you're a believer. How's that all incorporated into how you lead your life and how you do your job as a sheriff if you're elected?
Well, I think it's very important to treat everybody as if you don't be treated. You have to have morals and integrity to do the job as a sheriff or any law enforcement agent. You're holding someone's freedom in your hands. And in some instances, you're holding their life in your hand. You have to be able to have morals and integrity to be able to make the right decision. There's a whole lot of things that go into law enforcement that a lot of people don't see. The average person, they may have 2 traumas in their life. Have been in a bad car wreck, have a loved one die, get hurt, get sick, or whatever that affects their life. And a lot of times these are lifelong effects. It changes who people are. In a 20-year career, law enforcement agents have nearly 800 traumas in their life. Between having to fight individuals, being spit on. Just recently I had to do CPR on a child, and it changed my life. But, you have a lot of these traumas that affect law enforcement. I personally chose to be a Christian, believe in the Bible, not lie to people. Ultimately, everybody loves my honesty until I tell them the truth sometimes. And I apologize to people because I'm kind of rough around the edges. And sometimes I can be a little blunt. But, I think being a leader and being to talk to people and being to have some faith, a higher being, a higher calling is important. Because just because I'm sheriff doesn't mean I'm at the top of the ladder. I am so far down the ladder that it's crazy. But, I want to be a leader. I don't want to be an authoritarian. Just because I have a position doesn't make me a leader. My actions make me a leader. I'm going to get out here. I'm going to work with the staff. I'm going to get out here. And on Christmas, hey, first thing I'm going to do after I get elected, what crew is working on Christmas Day? Who has a small child? You know what? I'm going to work 3 hours for you that day. I want you to spend time with your family. Who's working Christmas Eve? Who's got a family or a close-knit family? The younger deputies that have small children, you cannot remake these memories with your kids. So, as a father, as a leader, as a sheriff, I'm going to get out there and help these people. And I'm going to go out here and make their lives better. Because they're putting their lives on the line for us. I can take a little bit of my time and sacrifice from my family to make their life better. So, that's just, I think that's the part of being a Christian is looking after other people. And, every decision I make is going to be what's the greater good for Chatham County, what's good for the department, not what's good for me.
That was my last question. Is there anything else you'd like to say as we wrap this up?
No, I just want people to know who I am. I appreciate the opportunity you let me get out here and express who I am and what I believe in. Ultimately, I just want to do what's best for Chatham County and what's best for the department. And we just need some changes. And I think it's time that once again we make crime illegal again in Chatham County, and just get out there and try to be good servants of the people.
Marcus, thank you so much for spending the time. Folks, if whether you like or don't like what you heard Marcus talk about, feel free to share this with other folks. We appreciate Marcus taking the time to talk to us, a little bit different than your standard interview type of process. But thank you for watching, and Marcus, thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Gene.